there and welcome to day 17. Today I want to talk to you about something known as the F pattern. The F pattern is actually a pretty simple design concept that I think you should understand when it comes to how you position things on your website. And I'm going to show you a couple examples actually from both of my websites on how I have applied the F pattern. But let me show you on my screen what the F pattern actually is, and then we could talk a little bit more about how to apply it. Okay, this is the F pattern. This is simply a screenshot that I pulled off the internet. If you run a search for F pattern, you'll find various people talking about this. But it's essentially that the way that a person visually looks at a page tends to resemble the letter F. Now what these are heat map images. These are heat maps based on where people are clicking on a page as well as where people look. These particular ones are based on clicks, I believe, but there's other tests where they have ways of actually measuring what part of a page a person's eyeballs actually land on, and they measure that, and it tends to fall into a letter F pattern. Basically, what the letter F means is that they tend to go across at the top, they tend to go down the left side, and then they tend to branch out across the middle, resembling the letter F in a way. But you could see here with these screenshots, this is the red pattern is the hottest portion of it because that's what most people are looking at, and then they tend to branch off to the right based on whatever catches their eye. But at the top, they tend to almost universally go from left to right looking at that because that's at the top of the page. So you'll notice this in books and things that you might read. We tend to scan the first thing at the top of the page and scan that over, and then we might go down the left side. And we do tend to be left to right readers, at least in most areas of the world, and therefore that's the way we tend to read these things. So let me pull over to my two sites at davidrisley.com as well as my tech site at pcmech.com and show you a little bit about how I personally have used the F pattern. Okay, well here we are on davidrisley.com, and again, if we look at the F pattern, we know that people are going to scan this header area first. So what do we see here? We see a logo and we see my byline telling people what the site is about. Now, if you actually looked at my stats, you would see that these links right up in here tend to be the most popular, especially about, because people tend to scan in this direction. And you'll also notice that as the F pattern goes across, I have got the nav bar turning into an arrow here in order to point into the inner circle. That was not by accident. Now, another thing about the F pattern is you know that people will go across the top, but then they go down the left side. Well, what do we have here? We've got this. It's a very graphical component for the six-figure blogger blueprint, if I can even speak it out. And there it is. The whole idea here is that they see that. Hopefully they want it some way, or it's going to at least drag them over so that they go from that image across to read this headline and then see that there's an opt-in here. Now, by the time you see this video, this area might actually look different. We actually might be putting the challenge itself here as an opt-in. But again, when I put that together, I'm going to be applying the F pattern as that there's going to be some kind of a visual concept right here that pulls people to the opt-in. Now, as you go down the left side, again, because people scan down the left side, you see the latest post. So it works out fine. Now, if you go on to one of the content pages themselves, which I need to get this weird program out of the way in order to do that. But anyway, you'll notice that the content is on the left side because I really want the content to be the major focus there. Now here we are on one of the random articles on my tech site at pcmech.com. This is actually not the home page, obviously. This is one of the posts itself. So now what do we look at in terms of the F pattern here? Well, again, you've got the same thing with regard to the logo and the thing going across like this. And actually, now that I look at this myself, I might actually consider moving this area for the insider, which is the newsletter that we do, over somehow on the left side, because it's, if I apply the F pattern to myself, it should probably go more like right here in order to catch the eye a little better. But here's another thing that I want people to take notice of is that we've actually, I can't circle it very well on my beautiful little tablet here, but you get the idea. This is the sidebar. and it's on the left side. Now, a lot of blogs tend to put their sidebar on the right side, and they say, well, emphasize the content because people tend to scan the left, and there's the content. And I've gone back and forth on this. However, I can tell you that when I move the ad to the left side, this ad performed a lot better. And I think it's because it was actually in the scan area. The other thing is I want people to get onto my list, and that's on the left side of the page right here. So if I had the content on there, well, these things would be in a lower performing area of the page because most people tend to put the sidebar over here on the right side, which is, according to the F pattern, a lower performing area to put things like that. So you might want to consider whether you want to have your sidebar on the left or the right side. There's definitely pros and cons to both, but depending on your priorities, you might want to consider flipping it from the typical right side over to the left side because of the F pattern. So how can we apply the F pattern to your site? Well, like one thing I mentioned was to have ads in the top left, because they tend to perform better. In my case, I actually have the sidebar there. Now, another option would be that the sidebar remains on the right side, but you embed an ad in the top left of your content. So right below your headline, right when the content actually starts in your blog post, put an ad right there. And typically, if you're using AdSense or something like that, that will be the highest converting spot to get them to click on that ad and make you more money. Now, another thing that you can apply the F pattern to is the way that you actually structure your content, the actual blog post. As you saw in the F pattern, people tend to read the first thing across the top, which means the first paragraph or two is actually incredibly important because they will tend to read that without fail. But then as they scan down, they're not really going to read everything in your post, which is a shocker to a lot of people. What they're going to tend to do is scan down the left side of the blog post, in which case you want things like bullet points, numbered list, and subheadlines to be those things which attract them visually, that bring them all the way across and get them to read what's underneath it. So those types of things, bullet points, numbers, lists, subheadlines, they're more than just breaking up the flow of content. They are also applications of the F pattern because they will bring the eye across to the right side, which is something that you want them to do if they actually are going to read the post. People don't tend to read posts all the way. They scan them, and you need to basically write to that tendency. That's just something that people naturally do. And then lastly is any calls to action, especially graphical ones, you tend to want to put them on the left. As you could see that I did that with the 6-figure blogger blueprint image, was on the left side of the page, and then it pulls them over to the right side and actually opt in. So these are some applications of the F pattern. I would encourage you to check out your blog and see how you might want to change it around in order to apply the F pattern, and be my guest to search Google for the F pattern because you will find other people talking about it and some various applications of it. Okay, I will talk to you guys soon.